You're watching Channel 37, WHXN, New Salem.
This never happens. We have an actual blockbuster movie not from a million years ago. Tonight on Channel 37's After Midnight, it's 007 in Casino Royale. Wait, what?
Hello, and welcome to Channel 37's After Midnight. I'm Dan, and with me are Dave.
Hello.
And Will.
Do I get an exploding briefcase and a secret transmitter?
Always, it's in the mail. And also joining us this time around is friend of the podcast and international gadabout, Ian Wilson. Mr. Wilson,
is
how
on
are
my
you, sir?
CV, international
Yes.
gadabouts. Yes.
How are you, sir?
Red-based kazoo comedian.
There's that as well. It depends. That doesn't go down so well on LinkedIn. Very white collar, I've noticed.
Yeah.
Aspiring amateur professional comedian.
True.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
Excellent.
That's the kind of cutting satire you can expect from an Ian Wilson gig.
Oh, yeah. I will now pay tribute to Keir Starmer with this 6-minute kazoo composition.
Can you make a sad trombone noise on kazoo?
No, I can't.
Like, if anything, a
A
sad
slide whistle, maybe, but not a kazoo.
Oh, the sad kazoo, if anything, is even funnier.
Well, Ian, thank you for coming on and joining us today. And you brought us a movie.
I did.
And can you tell us what that was?
It's something in my wheelhouse.
Yes.
It is 1967's Casino Royale.
And Ian, what is your semi-professional attachment to a movie such as this?
So, yes, because I certainly didn't make any bloody money off of it. So
Making money off podcasting.
back,
Yeah, because we're here for the money. I mean, I love mattresses. Don't you want to buy a mattress?
going back into podcasting yore, when Earth 2 was but a humble Saw fanfiction website and podcast, they took in contributions from various people, such as myself, whilst I was still doing student radio, and very much for diversity hire as an international person.
Yes.
Obviously, I've said that to the likes of Donovan, and he's like, "Excuse me," and obviously he saw the funny side of it. But yes, so after contributing segments on comic book movies, when the actual podcasting empire was expanding, I had pitched a podcast based upon the James Bond film series called For Your Ears Only, which I did with my wacky pal, Adam Fisher. Still alive, don't worry. And so between 2008 and 2010, we ran through all of the then released Bond films up to Quantum of Solace. And then we also looked at the 3 unofficial Bond entries. There were 2 Casino Royales, and then there was also Never Say Never Again, if only. But we came back for one special in 2012 with regards to Skyfall. And we did record Spectre, but there were so many issues around that. And then ultimately it never got released. So ostensibly that was the history of the podcast. Adam, remembering that things stay on the internet for a damn long time unless you take them down, requested that the podcast come down. And therefore, if you were there at the time, you got to experience it in full. If you're not, what I've told you is basically true. It's entirely true, in fact. And should you want my mid-20s musings on Bond films with my insane friend, then get in contact so I can supply it to you. But ostensibly, that was my shtick for a while. And I teamed up with Mr. Probert for other projects after that. But yes, so I am someone who's seen all of the Bond films, most all of the Bond spin-off media, and this is very much in the latter kind of thing. It is a full-length Bond film. It is an adaptation of Casino Royale. Yes, the Daniel Craig one. You wouldn't know it, but it is an adaptation of the same thing. whilst, yes, I did cover it back in 2010, I have not watched it since then. And I find myself in my early 40s and just like, ho, hum. Yes, that was a film. And I wonder if it qualifies for this very podcast when I was approached. And so it came to pass.
Yeah. I just as an aside, Adam's Mr. Fisher's rendition of the horns from Goldfinger actually blew out a speaker once.
Yes.
So,
Yes. That it is something that happened.
yeah, it did in my car.
You as well.
Yeah,
Okay. That's
it did.
2 then.
Yeah, it did. It blew out a speaker in my car.
Right. Lovely stuff.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Ian. Can you tell us what the movie? Can you try to surmise what the movie entails?
I'll give it a college try, Dan.
The best you can. It doesn't have to be super intense, like in depth.
Okay, so if you've seen the Daniel Craig Casino Royale, but let's put that to one side. I mean, that is an accurate version of the story, but that is not what we're talking about today. 1967's Casino Royale revolves around, yes, Le Chiffre trying to hoard as much money as possible to pull off his evil organization's best efforts at a location called Casino Royale. Now, everything else around that slightly different. So there is a James Bond, and then there's another, and another, and another, and another, and another, and another. And so it's the 67 film is a heartwarming look at the original, as played by Sir David Niven, who is coaxed back out of retirement by the very subtle method of blowing up his house, which, I don't know, but what other option did he have? It's like, well, my house is gone. May as well go back to work. And then he starts to reform MI6 or MI5 in his image, particularly because somehow the blowing up of his house at M's orders unintentionally killed off M. Therefore, he takes on that position. So we get to see this James Bond honor M in his Scottish castle with his wacky family and various attempts to kill him over that period of time. And then once he's established himself back in London, he gets Miss Moneypenny Jr., which makes things much more seedy than it otherwise would be, to then help recruit new members of MI5, all of whom going forward will be called James Bond with the code number 007. So one of these people gets hired, but Bond, who's also pining after his lost love, Mata Hari, turns out fathered a daughter, Mata Hari Jr., seemingly. So she has a side quest of her own. And then Peter Sellers shows up. He's also given the James Bond name and number. And with the help of actual former Bond girl, Ursula Andress, who is the Vesper Lind character in this film, is set up against Le Chiffre, who obviously is played by Orson Welles doing magic tricks.
Yeah, he is.
As you do, as you'd expect. It was all there in the subtext of Ian Fleming. So with that, Bond gets into a racing car and dies, and then the big bad turns out to be Woody Allen, and then it goes a bit Blazing Saddles, and we finish mercifully.
It stops.
Yes.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you very much, Ian, for that. I think that was actually more coherent than I anticipated it being.
I mean, I gave it a good go.
I appreciate it. Your efforts are definitely appreciated. I would like to have been a fly on the wall in the meeting where Harry Salzman finds out. So Orson Welles wants to do magic tricks. All right. Ian, tell me what your thoughts are on this movie.
I didn't listen back to the original for Only coverage, so it was a case of just coming back to it now. I mean, historically, I always thought very lowly of it just because it is a complete fucking mess. But rewatching it this time around, I decided to watch it not with the kind of blinkers of wanting to see a Bond film, but treating it as a 1960s comedy that takes on the tropes of the Bond franchise, because it was made in 1967. So it would be the same year as Connery's final original effort in with You Only Live Twice. But everyone would have known Bond because Bond Mania was Goldfinger onwards in 1964. So there wouldn't have been anyone going to see the film who didn't know the Bond franchise. They might have been surprised with what they got, certainly. But if you treat it as a 60s comedy, ensemble comedy that played on the Bond lore, spoofed it, parodied it, however you want to see it. And then another way of looking at it is if David Lynch was like 30 years older and had been given the Casino Royale source material to play with and said, make it a comedy, that would go some way into explaining how this got made the way it did. Ultimately, that wasn't the case, but I would say I've bumped it up my flick charts using that kind of prism of looking at the film. I still think it's very poorly made. It's obviously a lot of it slapped together to get around the real life production issues, particularly surrounding Peter Sellers. What a shock. And then, yeah, just I think your humor will, your opinion of it will very much live and die is if you can get on board with the humor and see what it was going for, if anything. But at the same time, I think just because it's so ramshackle, I can't call it a good film.
Okay. Thank you very much. Will, I'm going to ask you next. What now this was other than Ian, this was everybody's first time seeing this.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, me too. So, Will, tell me what you were thinking when you watched this, please.
I mean, it is incredibly unfocused, and it's basically an anthology film without actually ever saying it's an anthology film, because it's literally just, okay, now we're going to focus on this Bond. Now we're going to focus on this Bond. Now we're back to this Bond. And now we're on this Bond. And it's just like, is just uneven. Like a lot of anthology films is very uneven, because I will say there are a couple sequences that I did enjoy. Like I like the entire part in Berlin with Mata Bond, but then you have you just have whatever freaking Peter Sellers is doing with Orson Welles, and you're like, Jesus Christ, can get on with it.
The actual James Bond portion of this movie.
Yeah, like that is the parts that I'm like, why am I here? Why am I watching this? Like, and it just, that's the problem, is like there's a lot. This film has a lot of padding. That is my main issue with it. Is just like padded to hell and back. Like I feel like if you somehow found a way to cut like 40 minutes out of this thing, it would probably be much more watchable. Not completely watchable, but much more watchable.
Yeah. Okay. And Dave, how about yourself?
So I caught bits of this as a kid growing up. So I watched the Bond films as a child when they were on, and obviously enjoyed them immensely because there was lots of action and fights and guns and car chases and stuff. And I'd always sort of mentally associated this one as the silly one with the old fella in it. So it did really kind of hold my interest. So this was the first time I'd actually sat down and watched it properly. It's an odd duck. Like, there's no getting past that. I'd agree with Will. I think the Marta Bond bits are a definite highlight. Great to see Anna Quayle from A Hard Day's Night once again stealing the show.
Yeah.
She always does. In fact, she played a very similar kind of part to that in the Avengers for one episode, as a sort of a Russian equivalent to Emma Peel, and seeing her and Diana Rigg sort of teaming up to beat the shit out of a room full of idiots was glorious. But
She was a year or two away from appearing in Chitty Chitty Bang Bang.
Yeah, no, she's one of those like very unsung female character actors, I think, from that era. In fact, when I first encountered her growing up, she was a teacher in Grange Hill. I originally remember as Mrs. Munro from Grange Hill, was when I sort of first saw her. And then I sort of started seeing her in other things, and sort of as an adult realised she had this whole other kind of great character acting career before she played a teacher in a children's television soap opera. But yeah, no, as everyone has said, like this this does contain a an adaptation of the story of Casino Royale within it, which is, I'm assuming, adapted from somebody retelling it via a description that a friend who read the book 10 years ago had given them, because it's a very rushed Cliff Notes. Like, this is what happens in Casino Royale. It's like they adapted the blurb on the back rather than the actual book. But like, I found myself extremely entertained by Orson Welles. Orson Welles doing conjuring tricks, and turned out was something I didn't realise I needed and absolutely loved. Also, just interesting in terms of some of the jokes and some of the sort of set design stuff, that actually Austin Powers owns way more to this Bond film than it does to any of the other Bond films that it attempts to parody. There are bits of this which just look and feel straight up Austin Powers, like when they're escaping in those little kind of silver bubble car things, as people in go-go dresses and machine guns are running around behind them. I mean, that could have been lifted straight from an Austin Powers film. Apart from that, I thought David Niven was great, but yeah, he's David Niven, so you kind of expect it. Like John Huston pretending to be Sean Connery was a choice, and like, yeah, Woody Allen is in this, but like, he's in it for like probably the sum total of 10 minutes of screen time, and he literally could have been played by anybody. It's like it's. Yeah, I mean, like this isn't a Woody Allen film, but Woody Allen is a terrible human being, so I shall just kind of say that now, and then we'll just move on from that.
Very
As
early
I suspect
career,
there will be not much needs to discuss him in general.
True.
Okay. Thank you, Dave. I'm kind of there with everybody else. This movie, first of all, this movie is at least half an hour too long. It is essentially an anthology, as Will said. It's got 5 directors, and you can absolutely tell. I will say that the only directors I was actually familiar with before this were John Huston, of course, and Val Guest. But I knew going in that this was, James Bond, almost parody, really. But more than that, basically, I went in knowing it's a British film comedy made in Technicolor in the mid 1960s, which means if nothing else, it's going to look nice, right? It's going to look good, and it does. It's a beautiful, beautiful looking movie. I think that it is not as funny as it thinks it is. I think that camp is extremely much more difficult to write than it appears, and the Bond films are pretty campy anyway. So this was kind of like putting a hat on a hat, in that regard. And so much so that it sometimes just veered straight into Zucker Brothers territory. Having said that, I will agree with everybody that the Mata Bond Berlin scenes with Anna Quill and Ronnie Corbett were probably my favorite bits of the film overall. I go into this as, I've seen and enjoyed many James Bond films, but I wouldn't call myself like a 007 fan. So I didn't really kind of have that chip on my shoulder going into it that I might have had otherwise. But this was not, I didn't love this. I walked into this wanting to love it, and I didn't. There were a lot of things that worked, and there were more things that didn't. And again, I actually wound up watching it in 2 parts because it was just too long. I just needed to stop for a while, at one point. So I couldn't just sit and watch the whole thing in one go. And I think that part of that actually might have saved my attention span, honestly. But I will agree with a lot of I will absolutely agree with the Orson Welles love, though. He knows what kind of movie he's in, and he's having a great time doing what he's doing. He's ridiculous, but he's Orson Welles.
Absolutely. And again, one of the many things that has kind of coloured my viewing in a positive way since covering the film back in 2010, I've done a whole Hey an Actor episode on Orson Welles. It's like I've seen like a lot more of John Huston in the times as both an actor and a director. It's like this is John Huston before he's made China or been in Chinatown, which is a weird thing to think. the linearity of time. And then also, again, back in 2010, I would not have appreciated the kind of hidden corridors in the Matterhorn part in Berlin. It's just straight lifted from German Expressionism in the 1930s. It's amazingly done. And that is why I can kind of now give a bit more of a pass to Ronnie Corbett, who back in 2010, I'm like, the hell is Ronnie Corbett doing here?
Yeah, I mean, I must admit, a lot of this film was me doing the Leonardo DiCaprio points to the TV screen meme.
Yeah.
Ronnie Corbett!
I will
John the
say
Measurer!
when Ian and I were talking about doing this movie, we pointed out that it gives Dave the opportunity to tell us which of these people have been in Z cars.
Ostensibly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
we knew that you would recognize people.
Yeah. I mean, and also, but also for Bond films, like the chief's kind of representative who's running the auction is the chess strategist who comes up with the plan in From Russia with Love. He's the guy who gets stabbed by Rosa Clem's poisoned shoes.
And hilariously, his fate in this film opens up the Berlin Wall.
Yes.
Which is one of the actual really good sight gags of the film.
People just pouring through.
Yeah. So many prams. Everybody just about 15 prams being carried through.
If only knew that's all it took. One exploding telephone booth.
But yeah, so I was seeing so many little character actors. I mean, Bernard Cribbins is in this, which is he's always a delight to see turn up in anything. Like Peter O'Toole's got a little cameo in it. So yeah, it's a combination of like cameos from kind of well-known actors, like Peter O'Toole, Ursula Andress, or Orson Welles, but also kind of like if you watch the right things, kind of like people from, especially from British comedy. So pretty much one of the first people you see is John Le Mesurier, who's the sort of the chauffeur, who was married to Hattie Jacques from the Carry On films for a while.
He was, yes.
Yeah, in the UK, he is incredibly well known for Dad's Army, which is obviously one of our most kind of beloved sitcoms. It's our Hogan's Heroes, essentially.
Yeah.
And also, who's John Le Mesurier driving, as well as John Huston? William Holden.
Yeah.
Two of my notes are literally just, it's William Holden.
Yeah.
And Kurt Kasner from Land of the Giants.
George Reft shows up as himself right at the end.
Yeah, I think like he's in the opening credits. Like he's going to have a role in this. Like he's literally in it for the sum total of probably about a minute's worth of screen time. But like, hey, we got George Raft, stick him in the credits as well. Yeah, and there's just so many kind of like wonderful little kind of characters. And of course, Ronnie Corbett is a British comedy institution over here. I mean, it's like I'm trying to think who an American equivalent would be in terms of that kind of raconteur comedian.
Bob Hope?
Yeah, I suppose it would be. Yeah, it's kind of like that kind of just having Bob Hope turn up in a minor role. Yeah, but so the seeing that he was in this was like a lovely surprise, and seeing him just going full Peter Lorre as well was just an extra level of delight. It's just like not only is Ronnie Corbett in this, he's being utterly ridiculous. There is a film you can legitimately say like Ronnie Corbett and Orson Welles co-star.
Strange one.
Yeah. So purely from an actor spotting perspective, this film is an absolute goldmine.
Right. Now I'm going to say that like Peter Sellers is kind of a blind spot of mine. I've seen some of his movies, certainly, but not as many as I would like to. Obviously, I've seen like Inspector Clouseau and Dr. Strangelove and that kind of thing. I think this is the first time I've ever seen him, me personally, in a movie where he's just playing basically a normal guy.
Yeah.
You know?
But Peter Sellers was quite a handsome man who often made himself look grotesque and ridiculous to serve comedy. But yeah, here he plays things relatively straight. Like, I mean, a lot of his jokes come from being deadpanning stuff rather than I mean, other than that little dress-up sequence where he's wearing, but even then, when like he's wearing kind of stupid costumes, but he's kind of deadpanning it to kind of, yeah, counterpoint the ridiculousness of him being dressed as Napoleon and Hitler and Toulouse-Lautrec. But yeah, it's kind of an interesting version of Peter Sellers.
I mean, Peter Sellers, comedy legend and all, he's not necessarily the easiest person to get into / find in terms of origins, because he really broke out in the Goon Show, which Dave can correct me if I'm wrong. I don't know if it was exclusively a radio show. Maybe it had some TV transfer.
They had some. There was like for kids. There was like a puppet show spin-off called the Teddy Goons,
Right.
which was sort of voiced by them. And then, but yeah, I mean, it was almost exclusively radio that got basically like him. It was him, Spike Milligan, Harry Seacombe, Michael Bentine, like those four basically hitting the comedy stratosphere.
I always forget Michael Bentine.
Yeah, but he was in it, but he was in it less.
Yeah.
But yeah, the central sort of triumvirate was Sellers, Milligan, and Seacombe, who they'd all originally met during World War II, when they'd all ended up, through various means, doing kind of like the British equivalent of like USO shows, entertaining the troops. And yeah, off the back of that, they ended up sort of working together once after the war ended and started doing the Goon Show, and that just kind of like launched them off. But then, yeah, Peter Sellers ended up kind of doing Hollywood films in a way that Milligan and Seacombe didn't. And yeah, his career went on a very different trajectory. Sort of all three of them were sort of like very, very, very talented comedians, all in their own way, and they all had their own demons. I remember sort of Spike Milligan telling random stories about Peter Sellers, of him just sort of like he told one, it was like Sellers had turned up at his house saying he'd bought a brand new car. He bought this new, I think it was like a Bentley or something. And then he said, like, there's a squeak in the boot, but I can't work out where it's coming from. And he said to Spike, right, if I give you some chalk and a torch, can you go in the boot and I'll just drive around for a bit? And then anything you hear squeaking, can you just sort of circle it? And then I can take it to the garage and get it looked at. And so Milligan just went, well, fine, whatever. Drove around for a bit. And then, like, I think about half an hour later, the car boot opened and it was a policeman staring down at him. And he just said, "Oh, it's you." Like finding Spike Milligan in Peter Sellers' boot was the most normal thing in the world.
Strange man, Peter Sellers.
Yes.
Yeah, I think, at least here in America, the Goon Show is really, if anybody knows it at all, it's because of who they influenced. Obviously Python. Even John Lennon, his sense of humor was obviously very, very much in that line.
I mean, like, the Pythons have all said that the Goon Show was a major influence on what they were doing.
The King was a massive fan of the Goon Show, which led to an amazing TV moment, I think in 2001.
Yes.
Where Spike Milligan was getting honoured at like national television comedy. It isn't really a thing.
It was the British Comedy Awards. It was kind of like, you was getting like the lifetime achievement in comedy.
It's not a big thing. It's not like equivalent of the UK like Tonys or the Emmys or anything like that. It's simply a night for backslapping, basically. And so you have Spike Milligan getting up onto the stage to accept his Lifetime Achievement Award with the host, Jonathan Ross, telling him, and I've been asked to let you know that Prince Charles has sent this statement in to congratulate you as well. To which Spike Milligan, without missing a beat, says, the grovelling little shit. And he's...
Yeah, this is all on live television as well.
Yeah,
this is a live broadcast, so they couldn't do anything about it. But yeah, everyone just started crying with laughter.
So to kind of bring it back to the movie, and just kind of go through some of the people that we see, and I'd like to kind of hear now. I know that Dave, you'd mentioned a little bit about, I believe it was you, Dave, about David Niven.
Yes,
it might have been Will. I'm sorry.
No. I certainly mentioned Niven. I don't know if anybody else did.
Okay. like he's playing obviously a very different character than Sean Connery's Bond. What are we thinking about? I mean, actually, Will, I would like to start with you if you don't mind.
I mean, I like David Niven. David Niven is great, and I kind of they make a good point of differentiating him from Connery's Bond to the point where they're like, "Oh, you gave Connery my name and serial number," like without actually outright saying it. I mean, yeah, he is like one of the more like interesting parts of the film, like to the point where finally, when Peter Sellers shows up, I'm like, okay, can we go back to David Niven though? But yeah, no, I really enjoyed him in here. That first sequence with in the house went on too long, but for the most part, like, yeah, he did a pretty good job in it.
I think I should say about the house sequence again, dropping a couple of names. Deborah Kerr is the widow, and going very, very arch in her Scottish. Deborah Kerr, who legit is Scottish, like Glaswegian no less, but was still called upon to go incredibly arch and wide-eyed whilst hanging off of a drain pipe off of the. This woman was in Black Narcissus. She was in The King and I.
This was Mrs. Anna.
Exactly. So there's that, and then there's all of her exceptionally Scottish daughters, including Angela Schuyler, who was the daughter in the bathtub with David Niven, which was, he calls me my little thermometer. And she would go on to have a similarly bogus accent in on Her Majesty's Secret Service, as she played one of the angels of death that George Lazenby would seduce going on. And again, but she'd have a very plummy English voice for that. And she went on to be Mrs. Leslie Phillips and had a very... Indeed. And then had a very tragic death, which I won't need to relitigate here. But that entire sequence is, I mean, I'm not Scottish, and I do like making fun of the Scottish, but I think this film is taking it a bit far.
On behalf of my Scottish boy.
That said, I wouldn't mind a good wassail.
Yeah, that sequence kind of was interminable. Because it had one joke, and that joke is, oh, those wacky, wacky Scots.
I mean, I love David Niven in this. Yeah, I mean,
I'm sorry?
I said I love David Niven in this. I think he's like, I mean, he's funnier than Peter Sellers because he's playing it silly, but with like a, yeah, he's doing the traditional stiff upper lipped, you know, British agent serving the crown, and yeah, he's like his timing is perfect, his costuming is amazing. Like, yeah, like like his hunting outfit with the cloak and the hat and the like his suit with the cravat and everything. Like, you know, he absolutely looks apart. You can see why like Ian Fleming was like wanted Niven to play Bond when he was first thinking of it being adapted. Sort of Niven was one of the first people he thought of. I mean, I think his comic timing in this is fantastic. I think he handles himself pretty well in the fight scenes as well. You know, I mean, yes, they're comic fight scenes, but yeah, like he has a precision to the way he moves and stuff that I think kind of helps sell those moments really well.
He also has a stutter throughout the Scottish segment. And then when you get him to London, he says, by the way, since I've got back, have I had a stutter? No, sir. Good, because I don't have time for that now. Which, that harkens back to what you were saying about Austin Powers. That sounds very much like, sadly, it turns out Vanessa was a femboy. Yes, I'm afraid we knew that all along.
Ian, as somebody who obviously is a fan of the franchise and has watched all the films, what was your thoughts on Ursula Andress kind of being in this in a much different manner?
I think what it made me think was that at that time, whilst the Bond films were popular in the 60s, I don't think they'd ever get as popular as they were in the 60s again. I mean, there obviously are popular Bond films throughout the 70s, not so much the 80s, but the 90s and some of the Daniel Craig ones. I think it implied that it wasn't so sacrosanct that Ursula Andress didn't see it as just another job. And she's someone who very much is gracious in acknowledging what Dr. No did for her career, insofar as Dr. No gave her career, what with her on-screen introduction in the white bikini coming out of the sea. It's like some people, very few actors have that kind of introduction that really, I mean, from a male gazy way, it does tend to be actresses in a way, like, say, Cameron Diaz in The Mask in her introduction, that kind of thing. So seeing her go through it, because, I mean, Honey Rider, her character in Dr. No, is it's a bit basic. There's not a lot of the character as such. She's just really a woman who's kind of caught up in it because she just so happens to be swimming around Dr. No's island and then gets caught up with Bond and Quarrel of the Countdown of Death fame. And so theoretically, she has a lot more to play with and do as Vesper Lind. Again, it doesn't have to be the Vesper Lind of the novels. It doesn't have to be, there's no need to compare her and Eva Green because they're playing completely two different characters who just so happen to share the same name and in a film of the same name. So she's doing something completely different, which includes the revolving bed, again, Austin Powers, and photography of strange outfits, Austin Powers. Not to the extent of a full Hitler uniform. Even Mike Myers wouldn't go that far. But yeah, I thought in a way it kind of gave the film a bit of legitimacy in that you've got the first Bond girl in the film without necessarily saying, "Remember her?" Yeah, you know, because she wasn't like a has-been at that point. Dave, you'd know better than I. Was she? Did that come out before or after this film, roughly?
Now you're asking, and it's round about this. I'll look it up, but
Sure,
I
because
think it was before.
because this came out in '67. Speaking of Bernard Cribbins,
She was 65.
65. Okay, so I mean, she was still pretty famous at this time. So it's not a case of she was on the downward trajectory.
It was before. It was 1960.
Sure. Yeah. Cool.
And I feel like we have to at least address it. He's, as mentioned, he's only in the movie for about 10 minutes of total screen time, but we do have Woody Allen kind of in here, and he's really only in 2 sequences. And I'm going to admit, I thought that the first one, where he was kind of in front of the firing squad, actually did make me chuckle a little bit. But him kind of, spoiler, as the big bad doctor was kind of dumb, to be honest with you.
Because again, I might have interjected. It might have got to talk David, but I don't know how big Woody Allen was in the late '60s, ostensibly, for it to
No,
be
certainly.
much of a a get to have Woody Allen there.
But he was a stand-up comedian around about this sort of time. Really, I think he'd done things like the Ed Sullivan Show, hadn't he? Like around about this sort of time.
Yeah, he was a known factor.
Yeah,
Okay.
but he wasn't the filmmaker and writer and director that we kind of that he became. He was very much like just a fairly well-known stand-up comedian.
He'd done What's the New Pussycat with Peter Sellers like a couple years prior.
There's
And
quite
also
a
Ursula
bit of
Andress.
crossover with those films. Yeah.
Yeah. It's probably why he was brought in for this because of he was in What's the New Pussycat, and I think that film did quite well. So I imagine there was probably a sort of a thing of, all right, we get Peter Sellers back. Let's see who else we should get from What's the New Pussycat in this. Probably hence about Peter O'Toole turning up for a brief cameo as well. Yeah, I mean the first scene with Woody Allen in is really only it's funny, but he's not the reason it's funny. It's funny because of the gag of climbing over the wall to escape the firing squad, only to land in front of another firing squad. That's the joke, and that could have been anyone could have done that.
Yes.
And then in his second bit, it's all he doing some kind of silent film mugging when Niven can't hear him through the bulletproof glass. And then the rest of it is, oh, he's short and wants to kind of get rid of all men who are taller than him and keep all the women. It's kind of like, ugh. It's like, it was icky anyway, and then it's Woody Allen, so it gets even ickier.
That sequence with him and Dahlia Lavi being captured was super gross. Like, it was really hard to watch that bit, honestly.
But the only thing that just about saves it is the fact that she gets one over on him in the
Yes.
end and sort of slips him the nuclear aspirin. But that's like, if it wasn't for the fact that sort of she kind of cons him and essentially kills him slowly, and that would have been very uncomfortable. But it's pretty uncomfortable as it is. But like, it's the fact that she's shown to outsmart him and deliver the coup de grace.
Yeah, it's very much like, incel culture just made flesh 30, 40 years before that was actually a term that was coined. So yeah, that was gross. But
Then he
Orson
goes to
Welles.
hell.
Then he goes to hell at the very end, which was great. But Orson Welles, I gotta give it to Orson Welles though in this. Again, of everybody that's in this, I absolutely understood the assignment. Don't mug for the camera too much. Don't, just sit there, be Orson Welles. That's all we need you to do today.
He's very good at that.
Yeah, the moment where he just says, "I'm going to need a member. I'm going to need a member of the audience for this."
Like,
Man,
did we need the
I'd have watched the Orson Welles magic show. Like, if I'd been playing in Vegas or something.
That was his one of the things he did on the side.
Yeah.
He was like the Magnificent Orson or something like that. So you were talking about USO shows earlier, Dave.
Yeah.
Orson Welles did a lot of that in Los Angeles over the course of the Second World War, which is how he met and married Rita Hayworth for a bit.
Will, I'm sorry, you were going to say something?
I was just going to say, did we need Orson Welles doing magic tricks? No, but I appreciate seeing him.
Yeah. When I was a kid, I was watching, I think it was David Copperfield had a special. He used to have a special every year when I was younger. And one of the things that they did was they had film footage of Orson Welles doing card tricks, like talking to the camera, and it's a young Orson Welles, like almost like Citizen Kane era Orson Welles. And he was like doing card tricks and interacting with the camera, so it was like this kind of back and forth between him and Copperfield. So I knew from an early age that, in addition to being, Orson Welles, Charles Foster Kane, he was also somebody who was just goofy for card tricks. So it was really
But
fun.
he could have brought some of that to Unicron.
Yeah.
I saw very recently for the first time John Candy playing Orson Welles in and that was a hoot.
Vincent,
I will always
Vincent
give...
D'Onofrio does a very good Orson Welles in Ed Wood as well.
Yeah. And Laurice from LaMarche basically made a career off of just pretending to be Orson Welles.
Yes. The same thing we try to do every night, Joseph Cotton. Try to take over the world.
And this movie's like a decade before he becomes famous for the Pea commercial.
Yeah.
Or the bloopers for the Pea commercial.
And a full decade from his Magnificent cameo in the Muppet movie.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
For
Drop
the
the standard rich and famous contract for Kermit the Frog and Friends.
Someone say once that Orson Welles' career basically ran in reverse. It should have started with him doing beer commercials and ended with him making the greatest movie ever made.
No, he was wonderful. Absolutely, every second he was on screen, I was having a great time.
Peter Sellers wasn't.
Yes, I was just about to address that. Apparently, two unbelievably psychotic level narcissists could not stand to be in the same room together.
Having read the IMDb trivia, apparently one of the bases of the antipathy was the fact that Princess Margaret arrived on set. And apparently, Sellers had known Princess Margaret and was, again, presumably because the family was a big fan of the Goon Show. And so he'd made a big thing of theatrically greeting her But apparently she kind of ignored all that and immediately went to talk to Orson Welles because I already know you. I haven't met Orson Welles yet, and apparently there is speculation that gave Sellers the hump, and because he did have a very sensitive ego and was often quite paranoid about sort of how he was viewed by people. So yeah, a lot of their scenes were filmed entirely separately, which is why the chemistry sometimes feels a bit off because they're filming with different people.
God bless Princess Margaret, the Queen's wild sister.
Man. Yeah. I mean,
Very much the Kylie Jenner to the Queen's Kim Kardashian.
There's an image. But I mean, just to tie it back to the film, because Sellers not only was intimidated / annoyed by Wells, not only did he refuse to work with him, but he left the film early. Therefore, they had to make sense of some of the batshit nonsense sequences that were going on, such as the whole Piper band sequence, and then you can tell when they've frozen a still when Vesper has suddenly turned the bagpipes into a gun, and it's just very messy. It's not. I mean, I suppose the editors did what they could to try and save it and make it something vaguely credible, but it didn't work.
Like, if I had a nickel for every time I saw a movie where David Nivens got brought in when Peter Sellers left the film, like halfway through, I'd have 2 nickels, which isn't much, but it's weird that happened twice.
Could I inquire what the other one was?
Trail of the Pink Panther.
Yeah, that makes sense.
yeah, I guess the him climbing into the race car, like doing the goofy accent and getting in the race car was actually just an outtake of him fucking around for the camera that they had to put in because they just didn't have enough footage of him.
Although apparently the guy who he says follow that car to and then runs off was Sterling Moss, the well-known British Formula One racing driver.
I think he was trying to do an impression of Jackie Stewart, the famous Scottish racing driver.
I will admit that the follow that car, that joke is telegraphed a mile away, and I still laughed at it. I'm not going to lie.
There are some jokes which will always kind of stand up to even the stoniest of face, and
Yes.
deliberate misunderstanding of simple instructions is one of those wonderful pieces of comedy. It will always work. It can't be the only thing you rely on to add to your film / show, but a well-timed version of that will always land well.
Yeah.
What do you guys think of? I can't remember the name of the actor's name, but who played Martha Bond. I think she went on to be in a Bond film as well. I may be misremembering that, but I thought she was fantastic.
That's Joanna Pettit. I'm not seeing a Bond film on her resume.
Yeah, she just passed away actually a couple weeks ago.
That's too bad. It looks like she kind of went on to have a long career of doing, an episode of this TV show here and there, which is not a bad career to have. But it looks like that is kind of her thing, and it's primarily American television.
Because I was about to ask, okay, who did she play in Doctor Who?
Yeah, no.
Yeah, no, that's right. Yeah,
If she was in Doctor Who, Dave would have known her name.
Yeah. This much is true. No, she was in Knight Rider, I think, wasn't she? Yeah, a lot of kind of 80s shows of the day.
I don't see Oh, yeah, she was in Knight Rider, actually. And I'm seeing like Fall Guy and Knots Landing and Fantasy Island and Charlie's Angels and
Yeah, one of those kind of 80s character actors who did the rounds of shows like that.
Exactly. But to your earlier question, Dave, I thought she was good. I thought that she was funny. I thought, again, she was somebody that understood what kind of movie she was in and didn't overdo it, which is a big part of camp comedy that I think a lot of people didn't get the note for in this.
She had a very good lead up as well, where Niven says, whereas her mother was a terrific dancer but a terrible spy, she has the makings of a terrific spy but a terrible dancer. And then we see a dance routine that she duly does, which I wouldn't say was terrible, but not graceful, certainly.
It always tickles me when sort of like Mata Hari is kind of invoked in sort of spy dramas because it's always like she's a fictional character like Sherlock Holmes or something rather than an actual real person who existed.
Yeah. And again, I know this is one of those things where I look at it and it's like, look, if she's Mata Hari's daughter, she would have to be like in her 50s at this point. Of course, and I know it's not that kind of movie to get hung up on shit like that, but I'm me and I can't help it.
I suppose there's also the fact that you have a segment with regards to Moneypenny Jr. testing out men to be new recruits. And we come across this guy called Cooper, who has this one sequence and then is used again in the final third and just suddenly shows up.
He's Senna's cover.
Yeah.
Played by an actor named Terrence Cooper.
Well,
Well, it
just
was
need you
last
to-
minute.
Yeah, we just need you to beat up a room full of women for a few minutes. Is that okay?
But yeah, the Austin Powersness of it all is very. I hadn't, again, because I hadn't seen this, I hadn't realized quite how much of a debt it owed to Casino Royale. I mean, if nothing else, like the amount of Burt Bacharach used in the
Yes.
Austin Powers films. But
That is something.
I
Sorry.
hadn't realized The Look of Love was by Dusty Springfield was specifically from this film. But yeah, it's just like, yeah, the Burt Bacharachness of it all was certainly transferred over to Austin Powers.
Yeah, this movie, the soundtrack is obviously very, very iconic. Not just the look of love, but just like the main theme of the movie.
Herb Alpert.
has- Yes, Herb Alpert. And I didn't even have to look it up and see that it was Herb Alpert to hear it and know that it was Herb Alpert. That's how distinctive it was. Like, Bacharach is generally not to my taste, but I can absolutely understand why the thing that he did, he was very good at doing.
Very 60s as well.
Very sad.
Mhm.
This whole movie is just 1967. Just
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's fair.
made form. You know, where you've got obviously, Bond fever is kind of still a raging, ongoing thing, and you've got the Batman camp
Yes.
craze still happening at this point.
Like, was I mishearing it at one point? When like Mata Bond is having a fight, she makes a sound effect that she punches somebody. Was
No,
I?
yeah, she does say zap and pow when she hits people. Yes,
Okay, cool. I was just
I
making sure
picked
I
up on
didn't
that as well.
mishear
Yeah, that was excellent.
It was good. Yeah, like if this movie had been made a year earlier or a year later, it would have been a very different movie. It's that kind of time capsule. Also, I didn't see him in the credits, so maybe, but Woody Allen's voice when he's not being Woody Allen, was that Valentine Dial?
That was Valentine Dial. Yes,
Okay.
I didn't see his name in the credits either, but that's Valentine Dial.
Okay.
Yeah, there are a lot of people that didn't get credit for this film. I mean, I wonder why they wouldn't want to be credited.
Well, actually, I feel like, and again, your mileage may vary. You know that sometimes someone will make a movie and they are thoroughly expecting that it's going to be a gigantic global smash success. And they're just spending all the money and putting all the things in it. And, everybody, like, you can see like famous actors wanting to kind of have little cameos in it and things like that. Like Spice World or something like that, where it's just, people are going to watch it no matter what. People are going to want to see it. So, my kid wants me to, I want my kid to see me in this movie. So can you just put me in this little role? You don't have to credit me, that kind of thing. And that's what this movie felt like to me, was one of those kinds of movies that they thought was going to be absolutely unstoppable when it came out. And so we're just going to throw everything in it.
That's
Yeah.
Just looking up because I was wondering when in Valentine Dial's career this would crop up, and because he did have like a career on radio. He did like something that was kind of guest on as sort of The Man in Black. So he's it was just sort of like a series of radio dramas and stuff, and he also appeared on the Goon Show using that kind of persona as well. So probably because his voice was known on radio as playing somebody sinister. It was quite well known for that. It's probably why they got him in to do the kind of cover-up voice of Dr. Noah.
And we've also got a Doctor Who connection there.
Yes, absolutely.
He's the Black Guardian.
Confirmed Who count of one, at least.
Yeah.
A couple of the other interesting people that were uncredited. Angelica Houston stands in for Deborah Kear's Hands at one point, and then David Prowse is the Frankenstein monster.
Oh, yes, of course he is.
And I think in both the cases it's their first credit.
Yeah, and Prowse would go on to play Frankenstein's monster for Hammer a few times in the some of the later Peter Cushing Frankenstein sequels.
When Lee can't be asked.
Well, he's too busy being Dracula.
Yeah.
Being Dracula and Rasputin.
And I guess one of Woody Allen's guards at the end is a very young Carolyn Monroe.
Yes, yeah. And actually, is it Jacqueline Bisset?
Yes.
The woman that he sort of fires his gun
Good
at
Fies.
Yeah. So lots of kind of young. I think because I saw in the end credits she was credited as Jackie Bisset.
She was, yes.
Yeah. And apparently Peter Sellers, because he thought it would be funny, shot a blank right in her face.
Because isn't that the joke when she first enters? He turns around and fires the gun.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, but that wasn't the best introduction.
No. God damn it, Sellers.
But then there are many people out there who were great talented comedians, but in private were absolute dicks.
Yes.
In that regard, he is far from alone.
I mean, Woody Allen's in the same film. But
True.
then, I know this is technically pre-Python, but the idea of like a spaceship just like descending down into Trafalgar Square so that the kidnapping can go forward and then send them off into the air like a toy. Very Gilliam.
Yeah. I had the same thought.
I guess, this is kind of an interesting film from the point of view of the amount of more interesting things that this was the kernel of the idea for.
Mm.
This wasn't the thing, but a lot of people saw the potential of bits of this thing and strung it out into other things that were better.
Which I think makes sense. When you throw as much shit against the wall as this movie does, some of it's going to work. Or some of it's going to have a kernel of an idea that could work done a different way. So, I don't want to sit here and say, this movie's terrible and I hated watching it, because I didn't. Because there was so much happening that it was kind of one of those things was like, if this isn't doing it for me, something else will come along really soon that will. It's just super uneven.
You throw enough spaghetti at the wall, eventually something sticks.
Exactly. The only problem is that after that happens, they just keep throwing spaghetti.
Yeah. And then there's all the spaghetti
to the point where they knock
now.
off the bits of spaghetti that have already stuck.
Yeah. Sorry, Will.
Yeah. One weird little bit of trivia about this film, by the way. So, the film was originally made and released by Columbia Pictures. And so in 1999, they actually traded it with MGM because MGM had the Spider-Man rights. And the MGM had the Spider-Man rights during the 90s. There are 50 million directors that got attached to doing Spider-Man movies over the years. But eventually they're like, okay, we'll give you this for that, because MGM probably was just like, we want to actually make an actual Casino Royale at some point. And then, and then Sony ends up with both of them anyway.
Yes.
I can just imagine that exchange going down in a dark car park somewhere, just like an old spy exchange.
Like Casino Royale in a brown paper bag.
Yeah.
Just kind of being hidden behind the water pipes and the...
You think of the Weird Al video for White and Nerdy.
Yeah.
When he gets the Star Wars holiday special It's just that, but Casino Royale 67.
Yeah. I don't know. So I think we're kind of winding down here. Does anybody have any other last thoughts about Casino Royale? Do you recommend it, or are there circumstances in which you recommend it, or what are you thinking? Ian, we'll start with you.
I think if you're a completist, then it's worth watching. Again, it's as long as you go into it in the mindset it is not setting out to be it's not setting out to be Never Say Never Again. So I have one of those double DVDs with this film and Never Say Never Again combined. I'll treasure it until I die. By which I mean I will sell it off if I'm behind on mortgage payments. But it's got to be worth 50p.
I'm going to say, there's
But-
so optimistic of you that's going to cover a mortgage payment.
But I would say that as long as you don't go into it thinking, okay, this is going to be, some kind of Bond equivalent. This is going to be the next kind of. This is going to be akin to In Like Flint. Although I suppose it is a lot more In Like Flint than it is a Bond film, notwithstanding the IP that's being used. Again, I think having looked at it again with different eyes and coming at it from a different perspective, I find it more of a kind of amusing curiosity now than just an outright failure. Because, yes, ultimately it didn't set out whatever it's trying to achieve. I've got no fucking idea what it was trying to achieve. But ultimately, if you view it as an anthology film, which for all intents and purposes it is, it's just not made overt that it is. I mean, no worse ways to spend 2 hours, 11 minutes. No way does it need to be 2 hours, 11 minutes, but you can only justify it if you do consider it to be an anthology film. Yeah. So I'll say that.
Okay, Will, how about yourself?
So, I mean, it has the advantage of, one, it's not the worst adaptation of Casino Royale, and two, it also is not the worst James Bond film or piece of James Bond media. So,
I'll definitely agree with that. I think the shade on Peter Lorre there was immense.
Yeah.
but anyway, around, yeah, no, it's I could see this being something I could recommend to people, but I would recommend it with the caveat: you are watching a comedy, you are not watching a regular James Bond movie. And there are definitely going to be sequences where if you need to go and refill your drink, you're more than welcome to go and do it.
Yeah. Okay. Dave.
I mean, I think I'd recommend this if you like those films like In Like Flint, which is, apparently I've just seen came out the same year this did, 67. And if you're like a fan of Austin Powers and are curious to see the kind of where it's kind of got a lot of its influences from, I think it's an interesting film to watch from that perspective, to see where sort of that kind of, or at least some of that kind of kitsch humor kind of came from. But as a film in and of itself, I mean, well, I didn't hate the experience, but I wouldn't necessarily recommend it either. It was fine. Yeah, and I think if you're curious about seeing kind of the origins of a lot of the of things that would eventually become bigger different things, and it's worth checking out. But as a film in and of itself, see if you can get hold of the kind of the Master Bomb segment on its own somewhere on YouTube and watch that.
Yeah. It's not terrible by any stretch. If you're a Bond fan, you'll probably find a lot here to enjoy. I think that you do have to look at it as an anthology film, and it kind of is wild to me that the sequence directed by John Huston is the weakest part of the film. Motherfucker made the Maltese Falcon. Dude, step it up. you know? But it's very uneven. It's certainly not the best. It's not the best Bond parody I've ever seen. Honestly, think that's probably the first Austin Powers. And I think that had the benefit of having 30 years of hindsight. It wasn't the boom wasn't happening while it was coming out, and it wasn't being surrounded by 100 other Bond parodies like Flint, Dr. Goldfoot and all that kind of.
Yeah, Matt Helm.
Yeah, exactly. But and I can't stress this enough, it looks really nice. It's a beautifully shot film, and the cast is talented enough that good shit has to come through, right? Like you don't cast Peter Sellers and get nothing. You don't get no laughs at all if Peter Sellers is in the cast, right?
Correct.
There's going to be stuff that's funny. So
Blake Edwards got an entire career out of that.
Exactly. Exactly. So I can't say don't watch this. I do say kind of know what you're walking into when you do. All right, Ian, thank you so much for coming on and for bringing this. This was a lot of fun for me. Gentlemen, thank you all. Always a pleasure. Listeners, thank you for stopping by. We really appreciate it. Hope you had a good time. Please, the world is on fire. Take good care of yourselves. Get some rest. Go to bed.
Channel 37's After Midnight was presented by Will Ackerman, Dave Probert, DJ Toland, and Ian Wilson. Anna Quayle and Bernard Cribbins will return in Avengers Doomsday.